Good afternoon. I am Henry Hatter. I'm your co-host today on the In My Opinion show. And this show is seen 365 days a year somewhere in the world. Today we have Jeffery Wright. He is the Commissioner of the Drain Commission here, and he's and he's a subject matter expert, by the way, guys, in water. So we have him here for a second segment. Discussing the problems that we have with Flint water and its distribution. Good afternoon, Jeff.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me back.
Welcome back to the system.
Thank you very much.
The first segment we talked about the water system and the distribution of city water and how that water and Flint is divided into 4 quadrants. And these are all, each quadrant is protected by a backflow prevention device. And the backflow prevention device, once it sees a pressure that's lower downstream than it is upstream, it will shut the water supply down. And so a contaminated source of water can never backflow into the main trunk line of the distribution system. So a segment, if you look at this picture of 4 quadrants there, you will find that if you have a non-compliant condition in quadrant 1, it is impossible to experience that same condition in quadrant 4 at the same time. So when there's likely to be a complaint coming from quadrant 4 when the event occurs in quadrant 1, it's likely to be unrealistic, and some fear should be mislaid that way. Jeffrey, you want to explain to us how that functions again?
Well, it's what you said, Henry. You basically have 4 different quadrants or sections of the city that are isolated from each other on their water system. So it makes it physically impossible to move contaminants from one area to the other.
How is Burton protected and all of the other communities that use city water from the same pipeline?
It's basically what you said. You either have backflow prevention devices that only allow water to flow in one direction, or you actually isolate them with valves. On the city system of Burton, they actually feed off the 72-inch pipeline that comes from Lake Huron before it actually enters the city of Flint. So it would be physically, again, the pipes are not there to allow for that water to go from one system to the other. It's a totally separate system.
In this segment of the show, what I would like to show you is that we have had no complaints from hospitals, from health agencies, from colleges and universities, and from school systems and other healthcare organizations complaining about an epidemic of any kind of ailment with that population. We have heard nothing from restaurants who serve food every day, and people go on about their business and never complain. And I'm wondering, Jeffrey, why are we not seeing these complaints through these other institutions that use city water?
Well, I'm not 100% sure as to why we wouldn't be. If there was some real spike or increase in skin problems or lung problems, I'm sure that the healthcare industry would record that and let the appropriate officials know. So, not knowing exactly how the healthcare industry operates, I can't say as to why we haven't heard anything other than just what you said. They're not seeing a spike in problems. If they would be, they'd be contacting the county health department. They'd be putting out public notices themselves. As far as the restaurants go, I eat in restaurants in the city all the time, city of Flint. In fact, I ate in one yesterday, a long-term restaurant that always serves great food. And had a glass of Coca-Cola made out of Flint water, couldn't tell the difference from any other water. So it's hard to say why You haven't heard from
But
them,
doesn't
other
it-
than the fact they're not having problems.
But does, you being responsible to some degree for the water that you distribute throughout systems that are not pertaining to Flint,
Yes.
does that give you solace that you're not hearing those complaints? Does it, how do you communicate to your users that they should feel safe drinking the water or consuming the water?
Well,
Or
our
don't you
water
have to do
consumption
that?
has not dropped county-wide outside, so I feel that the majority of the people feel safe as it is. An interesting story, a gentleman contacted me a week ago. He lives in Atlas, Michigan, and said that he had a body rash and he thought it was because of the Flint water system. The reality is he's on a private well. He didn't know he was on a private well, and he assumed that his rash was from the Flint water, and he didn't even know that he was on his own private well. He contacted our office. We let him know where his water was truly coming from, and his question to me was, well, then why do I have a rash? And I said, well, you probably should contact your doctor, but this is the time of year when people take long hot showers do get dry skin, body rashes, etc. Now, all that being said, Henry, the confidence in part of the population of Flint has been shaken. I believe that is mainly caused by initially not having enough information given out to the people.
How did we get into this situation? It appears to me that the complaint of the Flint water system is far out of control with the impact that it has on the population, the health impact. How do you justify saying that the Flint water system is the best water, is among the best water in the world? For the
Well, it
cost that
is.
you pay?
That doesn't help the perception that people have gotten in the last couple of weeks or months. But the reality is, Henry, is the water system in the United States, including the Flint system, is the most regulated industry in the country, i.e. the world. There is no other industry that is regulated more than the water distribution systems of the country and of Flint, Michigan. The EPA has very strict standards on what's tested for, what levels are allowed, etc., and what has to be done if they find something that exceeds a level. They have to contact people, they have to put up public notices. But from an overall picture, the United States water supply, including Flint, is the safest, safer than Europe, which does not have anywhere near the regulations that we do in this country, and unfortunately, but certainly safer than South America, Africa, and most of Asia. The United States water supply is the premium water supply of the whole world, and other than this instance in Flint, historically we've had no problems with the water, but every water system, whether it's in Pontiac, Detroit, Lansing, Saginaw, or in another state, at one time or another, experiences similar problems. Even the Detroit system we were on up until last year, they had to send out 17 different boil orders to the Flint customers the last 10 years we were on the system. In 2009, they exceeded their lead and copper limits that they had in the water that they were sending to us, and had to put out the same notice that Flint had to put out a few months ago about the THMs. So it happens with every water system. It's unfortunate, but every water system occasionally has problems. But the good thing about it is there is oversight, there is regulation, and it's the best in the world.
You had a non-compliant condition back in August of 2014.
Yes, the city of Flint had one instance of
Now,
non-compliance in August.
I've been reading the articles kind of following that and some of the releases through the media, electronic media as well, on that condition. But where people are still edgy, and have we done enough communicating to the public to understand that that condition does not exist anymore?
I, at this point, don't believe you can do enough. I think that the people of the city of Flint particularly need to be given all the information as readily available and as quickly as it becomes available to the leaders of Flint. As you know, there was a gentleman by the name of Bob Baucock and another company by the name of Viola that's been brought in. Baucock came in on his own. Viola came in at the city of Flint's request. And the majority of what they reviewed, if you read all of their reports, they believe that Flint has a good water plant, that they have great personnel, that they need to tweak the system. But 99% of what these two different entities say is the same, except for one thing. Bob Baucock believes that they should eliminate the water softening. Viola believes that you need to keep the water softening at Flint. But other than that instance, they agreed upon everything, and in a general sense, they both stated that Flint has a good system. So that needs to be told to the people. They need to be brought up to speed on what it's all about, how you treat water, how it goes through the distribution system. And I think that's where most of Flint's continuing concerns lies, in the distribution system, not the water plant itself.
I think that there's another place where people have a problem with perception, and that's the intake water. The intake water is filled with many more dissolved solids and
Yes.
and organics, and when it goes through this system, the purification system, and they have chlorine from it, it is believed that those, well, maybe not those, but organic chemicals are causing some of the production when you chlorinate.
That is what the professionals are saying, that the chlorination mixed with the organics is what has caused the THMs. Excuse me. And that's typical of river water. It's not just in Flint. The river water has a much higher organic load than lake water.
Coming from feedlots and
animal, wildlife, organic leaves, twigs, everything.
And also domestic discharges,
right. Road runoff,
yeah.
etc. One thing that will help considerably is when the KWA pipeline comes on board, those organic levels will drop by 80%, which will mean that Flint will be able to use less chemicals and have a less expensive treatment process. Lake Huron water has 20% of the organics that the Flint River does. So the organic loads are much, much less, and that in itself will eliminate the vast majority of the chemical concerns that the people have. But to your point originally, how do you get the people to trust the water system again? And I believe that is through as much communication and education as possible. And I think the city has started that to the point where if you have a problem, they come to your house now, is what I'm told. They'll test your individual water at your home. And I encourage people that believe that they have a problem to call the city. Have them come out, test that water, see it firsthand, see what kinds of problems you're having.
I think that's a good step in the right direction.
Yes.
But when the KWA comes in online in maybe June or July.
Our goal is June of 2016.
Okay, when that comes online, please explain to our audience what kind of cost would be involved in bringing the water to the distribution point just east of this building here. And the cost after it comes through the city system. That's going to be an additional cost, right?
Well, there's a treatment cost because it's untreated water that comes from the lake.
Now, many people may think that that water is coming from the lake and going right into the homes of being treated by Detroit. At one time, we used to have that water treated by Detroit, right?
That's correct.
But now,
which, by the way, Detroit has to treat to the same standards that we do. All the standards are the same. So what Detroit tests for is the same things that we test for. What Detroit doesn't test for are the same things that we don't test for. There has been a lot of talk about that. And it's important for people to know that all treatment plants test for the exact same thing, and those standards are set by the EPA and the DEQ.
Now, do you think that most people understand that once we have the pipeline in that's dedicated to our plant here into the city and to other who pull water off of that system, that there's an additional cost?
Actually, the cost is less.
Yeah, but there is a cost.
Oh, there's a cost, because the pipeline only brings untreated water to Flint.
At a cost of $6 million a year, over
Well,
30 years.
the comparison to that is the last year that Flint was on the system, Flint alone paid the city of Detroit $13 million to purchase water. The KWA cost to Flint is $6.2 million a year, less than half of what they were paying Detroit. Now, you do have treatment costs on top of that that are around $2 to $3 million, so it's still less than what you're currently paying.
That's per year.
That's per year.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting and good about this is the KWA cost is a fixed cost for 30 years, does not go up. It's $6.2 million a year, every year for 30 years. The Detroit cost started at $13 million in 2014. If Flint were on the system today, they'd be paying $15 million as the county is. And there's an annual rate increase of a minimum of 4% a year for the next 30 years. So not only do we save money in the beginning, but every year we're on it, our savings increase by a minimum of 4% a year for 30 years.
Well, that's going to be very beneficial to people who accept water from the KWA.
Yes.
And
from a financial standpoint, it's a great move for the county and the city.
Does that include the treatment cost of returning the water back to the river?
No, it does not.
So there's another cost.
The wastewater treatment is a totally different cost on your bill. It's a different treatment plant.
Do you think that the public sees that and can be prepared to deal with it when they see their bill? If the line were
From
to
what
operate
I've
today,
seen over the last 30 years or plus that I've been in this business, most people in the county and the city, like the gentleman from Atlas that thought he was on the Flint water, but he was on his private well, most people don't know really where their water comes from and where their wastewater goes. There's 5 different wastewater treatment plants in Flint and Genesee County. Most people might think there's only one if they think there's any. So wastewater treatment costs are separate from the water costs. That's another part of the Flint bill, and it does spell out on that bill what is water, what is wastewater. I'm not real familiar with the Flint bills because I only service the county customers, but I also understand there's surcharges and readiness to serve fees and flat rates that are also included in that bill. So I'm not 100% up to speed on everything that they charge on a Flint water and sewer bill.
but just looking at what I was hoping I could get is kind of a combined cost as people expect for their water to beat the quality that they expect, even this year, or next year, or the year following. But when Babcock did recommend all of the changes and said that the water could be made great quality of water, removing the color and the smell of chlorine and other type of materials to give people the kind of appearance that they would like to see in the taste. And
the aesthetics are important.
Yeah.
That's mainly what's got people scared right now is the color, smell, and taste.
Yeah.
Now, Bob Babcock did say that we have a good plant in Flint, which they do, and he said it can be made to make high quality water, which it is. What he doesn't say though is the fact that it's much more expensive to make river water up to a certain quality than it is lake water, because of what we talked about earlier, organics, etc. So yes, you can make Flint River water and keep it very high quality, but it does cost a lot more than it does lake water.
And that's what I'm hoping, that people will be able to understand the cost of the water system, and it's going to, and the time that it takes to give them the kind of water quality that they want.
Mhm.
The water quality is usable at this point, but does not meet
It's,
the
it's,
aesthetic.
it's safe.
Safe.
It meets all health standards set by the EPA and the DEQ, but there's still an aesthetic problem. There's
Mhm.
still areas that occasionally have odor,
Mhm.
discoloration, and taste differences.
Do you think that happens all over the country, that people
Yes,
have
it
those
does
problems?
occasionally. It's not
How do they
something
handle
unique to
those
Flint.
problems?
It's,
How does the rest of the country handle
they,
those problems?
they battle through it like Flint is.
But-
The
but-
difference is, I think that they were more upfront in the beginning,
Oh, you mean
and
communication?
communication-wise. Hey, listen, this is what to expect. I think that unfortunately, and I don't know if it's because Flint's under an emergency manager or what the case may be, but there wasn't enough upfront education to the people to make them understand that going to the Flint River is going to have different tastes, smells, colors than the water they were used to. They were actually told that you would be able to tell the difference, and that is an impossibility. You cannot make river water look, taste, and smell
Because of the
exactly
dissolved
like,
solids and stuff
right,
like that. Yeah,
exactly like lake water. So it was a communications issue from the beginning. They're trying to get in front of it now, and I think they're starting to. Most communities, and if people think about the newscasts that they watch, there was a big incident in Toledo just last fall where people couldn't even drink the water for almost 2 weeks because of similar type problems. There was a problem in Elyria, Ohio, where they had the algae blooms in Lake Erie that caused some real toxin problems in their water treatment plants. So this goes on all the time. I think the best way to deal with it is tell the people as quickly as possible, as much as possible, and keep doing
Why
it.
don't we hear these more often? The water system is a very sensitive system.
Yes, it is.
Because people can detect it, and it reaches everybody's home and everybody's taste and everybody's uses it for multiple reasons, from full body contact to like in taking baths and like drinking and cooking and other uses, cleaning, etc. But so it is one of those that's very well. Those problems are very evident to everybody. That and why we don't have a real response for these problems, so they don't get
Well,
out
I
of
think
control.
this one caught, again, I can't speak for Flint because I don't have jurisdiction there, but from an outsider looking in, I think that the original initial complaints that people were calling up the city and talking about weren't taken real seriously. I can't say as to why, but they did kind of ignore the complaints for a couple of weeks until a lot of people started showing up, and then they started taking it seriously.
Do you think things are getting better now?
Oh, absolutely.
Or,
they're absolutely getting better, and I think Viola and Bob Bocock have made those comments that, hey, you got good water here, you just got to tweak a few things.
do you think the credibility of comments are getting better for people who complain about the water? Or are we getting... What do you think that
It's hard to get the people's
conversation-
confidence back once it's been lost.
Do you think
and that's a problem.
Do you think the
It's going to take time.
Do you think the political conversations are helping to improve confidence in our water?
Yes. Enough can't be said. I think that the people need to have an opportunity to express their concerns. I think the city and its people need to tell exactly what's going on in real time as it's going on, and I think they're moving in those directions. The offer of coming to anybody's home and testing their water is the best they can do. When you show a personal interest in that person's home, that you're willing to send a crew out to test that water and look at their system, that's the best you can do right there.
Well,
Maybe it should have been done a little sooner.
yeah, that's part of the
But it's being
public
done.
relations.
Right, but it's being
effort.
done now. Well,
Yeah.
it tests the water right at
Yeah.
that site.
And that's a good sign.
That's a very good sign.
That's a good approach to build confidence and capacity back into the purveyor, the water system.
It
the
will
most
take some time
regulated.
though. A large portion of the population did lose confidence. It will take time of having clear water, good tasting water, before the confidence.
Now,
will come
remembering
back.
that the water system is the most regulated system in the
Yes.
United States of business.
It is.
And we should have more confidence in something that's regulated to that degree. And I hope it comes back
Municipal
quickly.
water systems
Yes.
are the most regulated. As we talked about in our last program, bottled water
Yes,
has
I would
no
like to
regulation.
touch up on that for a minute, for a quick comparison. We're going to have to leave the show very quickly. You want to touch up on that?
Well,
Also give us a cost comparison based on a tank.
it's amazing what a bottle of water costs compared to what you can get out of the municipal
And the
system.
quality of the water with respect to.
The bottled water has no federal oversight or regulation, just like municipal water has complete oversight and regulation. Bottled water does not require testing for any of the same chemicals municipal water does.
Mhm.
And if a company does its own testing and they find something, they don't even have to contact you and let you know. As far as the cost factor, one bottle of water, if it costs you $1, you can get 750 gallons of municipal water for that same dollar that it cost you to buy one bottle of water. So the cost is phenomenally different. The oversight and regulation and the proof of quality is vastly different too. So bottled water is not a panacea because it's not tested and it's very, very expensive compared to the municipal system.
I want to touch upon this real quickly, Jeff. Now, in a couple of years, you're going to have an operating water treatment plant very quickly.
Hopefully about
online,
18 months, yes.
In 18 months. What makes your system different than the one that's currently used?
Nothing.
Nothing.
We're
The
gonna
technology will be the same?
Technology that we're using in our water treatment plant is the exact same technology that they're using in the Flint facility, where they have charcoal and sand filters, where they have chlorine disinfection. It's the exact same thing.
Well, we got to wrap up, Jeffrey. I think that's a great comment on how your system will compare with what we have here in Flint. It would be the same system with the same kind of technologies applied. The only difference is the intrusion of organics from.
That is the only
outsourcing.
difference.
Thank you very much,
My pleasure.
Jeffrey. It was nice
thanks to
having
the
you,
audience.
and I hope to see you again when we will be able to discuss the new various types of features in communication that you have on a video
Sounds
that
good.
we will be able to introduce to our customers.
Thank you, sir.
This is the In My Opinion Show. Thank you.